Hi, I wanted to share with you an easy way of making books. If, like me, you're doing a library of any size in your project, it means that you're going to want a huge amount of books. Lady I know actually made 2,000 for her bookshop. Hopefully, I'm not going to go that far. There's a zillion ways of doing it, but this is really a nice, easy one, and you could adapt it to sort of homemade all the way if you want to. I haven't done that. I spent an eye-watering amount of £22.95 on a mini Mundis book set, and you get 89 pieces of kit to make books from. Now, the reason I did this, besides being sheer lazy, is that the paper quality and the print quality is better than I can get for a start off. So if I'm going to go and copy books or take free printies off the web and print those up, I'm not going to get this quality. If you can reach this sort of quality with your printer and your paper, or you're not so fussed about the quality, that's fine. There are tons of free printies, just Google them and you'll find lots and lots of links of people giving photographs like these so that you can print your own book covers. So basically you need a set of book covers, however you want to do that. And this again is a nice easy way of doing it. These are pieces of balsa that come with this kit, and it has a rounded back on it. They're in two thicknesses. There's a thick one and a thin one. I think it's 4mm and 6mm to be precise, because they happen to fit these pictures. You're obviously going to get the thickness of the wood that you need and the width of the wood that you need for the pictures that you've done. So as I said, being lazy, I've let somebody else do all of that for me, and I've got my book covers and I've got my pieces of wood. I haven't had to source them and haven't had to do them. So I also said it was nearly £23, which it was, and I've seen them several times and have not bought them because I keep thinking, gosh, that's a lot of money for a bunch of books. But if you do your maths, this is going to come out at less than 26 pence a book, and there's no way you can buy a finished book for that sort of price. So actually they are still a bargain at the end of the day. Okay, so that's what you start with. Obviously, stating the obvious, you cut these out. Doesn't matter whether you use a knife or a scissors, it's whatever you're most comfortable using. Just be very, very accurate. Make sure there's no little white edges left behind from the background, and that you haven't overcut, obviously, or that you're wobbly. Try and get them as neat as you can. And you'll end up then with a stack of book covers and pieces of wood. At that point, you're going to need to cut your wood, and it's as easy as, if it's the thin material, you can cut it with a knife. If it's the thick material, you're a little bit better using a saw. Again, I have used a saw for all of it, thick and thin, because I find I'm more accurate with the saw on a mitre block than I am using a knife to cut even balsa wood. I can get better cuts. So you want them all the same size. And again, if you're using a saw on a mitre block, you can put a stop in. So you can either put a piece of sticky tape across it and mark the point where they should all come to, or clamp another piece of wood inside it, which acts as a stop for the piece of wood you're putting in to cut through, so that they all come out the same size. So I haven't shown you any of those processes because I think they're basically obvious ones when you come to do them. Cut out your paper, cut out your wood. If you find there's any little rough bits on them that are annoying you where you've cut, because balsa is a pig for sort of fraying, you just knock the edges off with some very fine sandpaper or a nail block like this one. This is what nail people use. It's like you get two for like £1 from one of the pound shops, and it's great because it's a very fine surface and it will just knock off those edges if you want to do that. The instructions then say paint the edges of your book with Tipp-Ex or white paint or whatever, so that the edges of your book look like pages. Now, I have done that and I would actually contradict them, and I'll just show you why. I think I've dirtied them all up now, so perhaps you can't see. There's one. I hope you can see how white it is, and I think it's way too white for how a book looks. There are very few book papers that are pure white like that, sort of glow in the dark white. So I ended up mucking up the tops of them with a pencil to mimic pages and to just tone them down. And ultimately, the ones I'm making now, I'm just not doing any of that with at all. I'm sticking with the balsa. I think the balsa looks infinitely more like paper, like the edge of an old book, particularly, of course, as these are supposed to be old, ancient volumes. So I think that's ideal. The other thing you can do if you want to is that you can gilt edge them, you can gold edge them. I did it on one set because it had a lot of gold on the front of it. I think I'm blocking the light a bit here, so I'm hoping you can see this okay. But there was a lot of gold on the front of the book, on the picture on the front of the book. It's another reason for me to have bought these printers, because that's an effect I couldn't get just by photocopying. So there's gilt on there, so I gilded the edges, and that's just a matter of a gold pen. Having said that, the very, very, very best gold pen, this is an opportunity to share one with you, if only I could find it, is a Krylon gold leaf, and it's absolutely the bee's knees. You can't better this one. It's described as 18 karat gold leaf pen, and it's made by Krylon, and it really is, honestly, this is the very, very best. I've got at least half a dozen other gold pens that I've used for edging furniture and gold leafing around doors and all kinds of things, and none of them come anywhere near this. This does leave almost like a gold leaf surface on things. It's absolutely excellent. It's probably £6-7, I think, to buy. I don't think they're cheap. I got mine in the States, so it was a bit cheaper. So they're not that cheap to get, but it lasts forever. This is still quite heavy, and I must have had it 2 years, 3 years even, and it's not dried out. I mean, I have read online where people are reviewing them that they've dried out, but mine's been fine. Keep any felt tip pen, anything at all that you've got that's a felt tip pen, or any glue, anything like that at all. Always keep them, in a way, upside down. Your instinct is to put them in the pot like that, particularly as the colour cap is here. But what's happening, obviously, is that all the stuff is draining away from them, and the felt tip inside here is going to dry up. If you keep them that way up, wherever you keep them, they're going to, by my logic, they're going to stay moist. It's perpetually sort of feeding this end piece here. And it doesn't run into the cap or anything. Right, okay, so you've got your blocks of wood. You've painted or finished off the edges if you want to. You've left them natural if you want to. Let me just show you those three again. There's the three choices. There's a gold leaf, the natural one, and one that's been painted white. Choice is yours. Okay, after that, you will see that when you wrap the paper around the block, you're going to deliberately have a little paper edge all around the inside of it. That's how books look. The cover is bigger than the pages because it's there to protect the pages. So you've always got to have a smidgen of book cover proud of the paper inside. And I discovered very quickly that if you wrap one of these papers around one of these books, like so, leaving the inside like that, you're going to have white edges, and they look really weird. Well, they basically look like a piece of printed paper wrapped around a block of wood. So if you look at a real book, you're going to see that whatever is on the cover has generally been taken round to the inside, or the inside has been finished off in some way. It's not just a piece of cardboard lying there. So I picked up one that I've done in red because I'm hoping it will show up more. So you need to get edges in there. First time round, like an idiot, I wrapped the book up and then went in and fiddled about with a pen trying to fill it in, which is clearly a stupid way of doing it. Because all you need to do is, when you've got your book cover cut, is go round inside the edge with an appropriate colour, something that matches your outside as close as you can, as near as you can get to it. That way, when you lie your book on, you've got a perfectly finished edge and you're not having to go back in and fiddle around. The only handy tip I have for you here is also make sure you do this cut edge run your pen along that cut edge, because if you don't, when you're looking down on top of your book, you will literally have like a little white line going all around your book because this cut edge is still white. So make sure you do that, and you do just inside the edges. It really is then as simple as a little bit of glue on here, and I do mean a little bit of glue, you don't need a lot. The part that you're trying to stick the absolute most is around the spine area in the middle. You don't need to take it to the edges, you can if you want, but books aren't fastened in that way. The cover is a loose cover, so it obviously doesn't need really sticking right around the top and right around the edges. So I put the concentrated part in the middle, spread it a little each side. You might want to give your folder a bit of a practice bend before you do that, to get it into some sort of shape, but you don't need to. You then slip your piece of wood inside, looking at it carefully, making sure you've got enough edges all the way around, which I haven't got on this one, so it would need adjusting. But generally speaking, you're doing that with it so that you're looking to see you've got some edges everywhere. This obviously needs a bit of a trim down this side. I'm working on a different size book at the moment, that's why. The big fat books over here were dead straightforward. They just did their own thing and they did it properly. And that is it. That is it. It's made. You can just throw it to one side. I was a little bit more keen to make sure that they were all flat and they laid flat, because I want them side by side on the shelf. So as I finished each one, I just slipped it underneath something with a bit of pressure, a bit of weight on it, just to make sure that they were nice and flat when they came out, which of course they were. And you end up with sets of books that look absolutely fabulous when they're on your library bookshelves, or scattered in a pile as I've just done, or whatever it is you want to do with them. There's a million ways of making books. You can make them obviously with printed pages. You can do this filling in part here with just folded paper if you don't want to try and find some wood to do it with. The wood is definitely quicker, definitely easier. I have done it with lots of folds of paper. And it isn't that that's a problem, it's that they're not such a good shape, and it is quite a bit of work doing all of that. But as you can see, my library is growing and growing and growing, and I think I've got about 70 to do. But eventually I will end up with tons of books to go on my library shelves.